Hey there, I'm Mark from Spectrum Pulse, and today we have from Black Dresses, Laughing Fish. I've learned to take words like final album with a grain of salt these days. A lot of acts retire and then unretire, or there's a surprise reunion, or for a reason or not, the band continues on in a weird state that's purposefully less defined in order to confuse those who might harass them for bullshit, bigoted reasons. But for a while now, I've had the sneaking suspicion that Ada Rook and Debbie McCallion might have been looking to do other things outside of Black Dresses. I mean, outside of their creaking, twisted brand of industrial metal and glitch pop, they've been collaborating frequently with other acts behind the boards and in front of the microphone, to say nothing of Ada Rook's ridiculously fun Angel Electronics, who had their debut last year. So if this is intended to be as a proper send-off to Black Dresses, I'm going to be a little bit more forgiving of a 22-song, nearly 80-minute runtime. But after a lot of repeated listens, well, they certainly want to test the limits of any forgiveness I might give them, because thematically, this seems to be capturing the duo's frustrated creative implosion in real time, where the runtime becomes a borderline endurance test for how much grinding discomfort and tension the audience can endure, in both members going at each other with a sort of messy codependence that is destined to get ugly, their own tortured self-loathing and burnout to exist as trans in an increasingly hostile world. Bad Veggies is punishingly visceral here, and following it with a softer look back on nearly a decade of living in the space on Wounded Animal, it is heartbreaking. And following in Forget Your Own Face, the continued antipathy at the music industry and the scene that seems to expect creativity on a schedule or a consistent formula to then be commodified. I mean, it feels like watching a slow motion car crash, and outside of a couple of the longer songs that kind of meander, I do intend that as a compliment. As such, the sound feels like a shambling culmination of a lot of ideas across Black Dresses' career. Glitter-smeared late 2000s pop rap, quaking glitch pop, creaking post-industrial nu metal grooves, claustrophobic bedroom pop with some slimy synths and off-kilter guitars, even some more polished jangling compositions leaning towards happy hardcore or even alternative rock. And the moments where it all comes together, they're spotty, almost intentionally so. Like with Forget Your Own Face, some of these songs rely on the squealing clash of textures or an instrumental element feeling a little bit unsupported in the mix to draw attention to what should be working and isn't. A lesson that I'll admit can kind of get exhausting to hear over and over again. Now, that's not saying there aren't new ideas or instrumental tones being explored. Feel Something is a pummeling, claustrophobic nightmare of poverty and the inability to escape drama within chosen families. Pure Reality has what sounds like horns behind those shambling late 90s riffs. I really love those deep, quaking synths on 1-800 The Moon, and I also like how they explore feeling more comfortable in instability or chaos than routine or even peace. I mean, when you're denied that space for so long, when you get there, it forces you to confront parts of your identity where trauma might be what's holding it all together. And that can be just as frightening. And it also isn't just a wallow. There are multiple songs here that look back on moments of creativity and connection where you can tell they wish they cherished it within each other a little bit more at the time. And if it is all to end, the more accessible 1-2 punch of Zero Fantasy and Silence shows how they can look forward and move on, acknowledge what was given, and for a brief moment, maybe understand each other one more time. But as a whole, the odd thing is that while I would struggle to call this great all the way through, it's overlong, scattered, and often intentionally frustrating in some of the repetition. The back half of the project drags, and this duo is more than happy to vivisect any straightforward pop construction whenever it materializes, which kind of can scream self-sabotage. I'd also say that as a finale to this era of Black Dresses, I couldn't imagine anything else as a send-off. It probably works best piecemeal. A fan of any era of their sound is going to find at least a couple songs that'll just go off. And as someone who usually has found a lot to like, if not love, I can still recognize a seminal underground act who can end things on a mostly high note. They're absolutely worth the deep dive if you haven't gone in, but in the meantime, definitely worth checking this out. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you want to see more, please be sure to like, share, drop comments, and subscribe. I know this is a lot as an album. It's going to be kind of tough to untangle, and I will say that I kind of wanted to like it a little bit more than I actually do. I think it's very, very good, if not consistently great. But a project like this is bucking against any kind of consistency that is part of the point, and trying to engage with that fairly in both intent and execution made this kind of tough to review. That's kind of why this review is a little later than I might expect. Beyond that, though, anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. And if y'all want to get involved in helping support the channel, get albums on my schedule coming up in July, or just yell at me on my Discord, link to my Patreon is right over there. Don't feel obligated, tough times out there, I understand. But as always, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.